Okay, hello and welcome. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Edgewood Board of Education. The date is February the 12th and the time is 6 p.m. Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Here.
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Here.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Present.
Mr. Gabbard.
Here.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Here.
Second item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Oh, I'm sorry. So we have Mr. Sarge Arnold from the Edgewood Baptist Church to lead us in prayer tonight.
President, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Pray with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this evening, for this time to gather here in this place. We pray, Father, for your support for this group, this board, as they make decisions that concern this school district. We also pray, Father, for the administration throughout the district, that you lift them up and you be with them. We pray your influence with them also. We pray, Father, for the teachers in the system, because they're teaching the youngsters and the future. We just pray, Father, that your influence also will be with them. We pray to be with the student body. Father, they need a lot of help. And we pray, Father, your influence with them. Just remove the bullying, all those unkind things that happen during the school time. If you eliminate those, the day just goes much better. And as we move on, Father, be with the parents of the district. What a glory it is that the parents allow their kids to come. I know the law says, hey, you got to be here, but with the parent support, it makes things a lot easier. We pray that you be with the bus drivers, you be with the cafeteria workers, with the custodians. Father, be an influence with them also, because the world needs you, Lord, and we just pray that you be with them. And now, Father, as we come for tonight's meeting, we pray that your influence be with the Vote for the Likewise program, and we just pray, Lord, for your influence there, because we need your influence in all of our life and our daily life. So be with each and every one of those that show enough interest to be here tonight, Father, those that are attending. Just God bless them all, and bless this board as they make decisions for this district and this community. For it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. So the next item of business is approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Gary Gabbard. Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
So the next item of business was presentations, and Mr. York is not able to be with us tonight due to the date change. So we will get him back in here at some point to give us the Butler Tech update. The next item of business is public participation. I don't believe we had anybody sign up to participate tonight. So with that said, we'll move into treasure items. Mrs. Bowers.
The first agenda item, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the board minutes from the January 22nd meeting.
I'm looking for a motion to approve board minutes from our regularly scheduled meeting on January 22nd.
So moved.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Michael Pressler. Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. The next agenda item, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the January 2024 financial reports as presented.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the January 2024 financial reports as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft, any discussion?
No.
No discussion? Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. The next agenda item, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the Butler County MOU with our COG.
So moved.
I'm looking for a motion to, looking for a motion to approve the 2024-2025 MOU with the COG.
So moved.
Miss Amy Ashcraft, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Andrew Pressler. Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll? Or actually, any discussion?
Well, I have a question, which, on the second page, the rate packages, like, which one are we doing? Because it doesn't,
We are doing option A right there on the top.
okay,
That's what we're recommending.
okay.
From Mr. Pressler.
Yeah. So it says in here it's $3,000 to set this up. Do we pay that every year?
Anytime you
I'm
change
fine,
fees,
yeah. I'm trying to get it open.
So
They
isn't this what
provide
we?
the sub-service for us, so we do pay a 5% fee, I wanna say, unless they've raised that over the last few years in regard to managing
It's 6%.
6%.
6%.
Managing the subs, doing the electronics, and they do that again for the whole county.
So what's different on here compared to last year? Because that's the same rate we were paying last year, right?
There is no difference, we just get this approved every year, so this is for next year that we want to use this same MOU and contract with Butler for the.
We're paying for their
cost.
service,
But we still have to pay the $3,000, even though it's already been set up previously.
because they manage all the names. Every year they change, and they manage the fingerprinting, they manage all of that whole process. So anytime you need a sub, you just go through electronically, so we're paying them for that service.
Got
It
it.
says we don't if we receive substitute teaching personnel services during the school year prior.
Let me see.
Since we don't pay a 6% fee,
A one-time startup fee.
of
That's not
$3,000.
right. Yeah, I think, is that
And
what?
then a
you're talking
6%
about?
fee
Yeah,
for,
that's
what's
weird.
Yes, it's a 6% fee. We also pay 19% for their benefits.
but their question is the $3,000 fee. Why is that annually if they set us up already?
Says a one-time
It
start.
says
Just as one time.
startup.
So we don't.
We shouldn't pay that, we should only pay the 6%.
Okay, so we're not paying that $3,000.
Yep.
But we don't know like what, it's just it's a percentage fee of what?
The total
So,
sub cost.
Yeah.
so under personnel items in the past, we've approved subs to be on our, to be available to us. Are they part of this, or are they?
No, so there's like administrators are not on this. There's times we've had to go and recruit a long-term sub because of a special license, so we bring them through outside of that, but it's very rare. The majority day-to-day subs are through this COG.
I did not realize that. I thought we managed our own subs.
No.
When we bring most of the subs to you, it's custodians, bus drivers, like usually we have subs.
Not certified.
But not for teachers.
Okay, I did not realize that. Any more discussion?
No.
Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Were you going to abstain?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a second. We have Mrs. Ashcraft first. Mr. Andrew Pressler is going to abstain.
Oh, yeah, I should know myself.
Okay, so
I need a second.
I need a So going back to this, I need a second motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Gary Gabbard. So with that said, we're ready to go to vote now.
Yes.
Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. The next, I would like to ask for a motion to approve an anonymous donation. This is $1,000 to go toward lunch charges.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the anonymous donation of $1,000 to go towards past due lunch charges.
So moved.
Mr. Gary Gabbard, can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Michael Pressler, any discussion?
That's very nice. Does that take that down to like nothing now?
She'll take it down to 200.
He didn't tell me the total. He started, this particular person, the call and asked if she could donate, had a specific request that we start with the intermediate building and then go to the primary building, so.
Last week it was 1,200.
Okay, so he's working his way through the list, so yeah,
Okay.
that should be down.
Well, whoever donated that money, if you're watching at home, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're down to $200.
Yeah.
Well, that's
this
that's
year.
current outstanding.
Like
We
for
have,
them, yeah, as kids charge through the month,
Okay.
yeah.
You're right, Kurt.
yeah, we have hundreds of
Not the
thousands
big
of
one.
dollars.
In past.
She's getting excited for it.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
That motion carries 5-0. The next agenda item is a motion to approve a donation from board office employees, again to be used for the old account hanging out there since 2014.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve a donation of, I believe it was it $175 from board office employees to go towards past due lunch charges.
So moved.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft, looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, any discussions?
Yeah. So this is a specific account, just this was one student account. Is that
This
right?
is actually an old account that has a lot charged on it that we're just doing donations at the board office to chip away at it.
Just
This is,
just to get rid of it, so that way that's taken care
in
of.
100 years, this should be gone.
So now
Wow.
it's 199,000 and 750.
Wow. All right. Thanks.
Well, I would say thank you very much for
Yes.
all of y'all in the board office for doing that. That's a significant undertaking. We appreciate you doing that. Any more discussion? Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. That's all I have today.
All right, Mrs. Bowers, thank you very much. So the next item of business is superintendent items.
Yes.
Mrs. Spivey.
Mr. President, members of the board, I would like you to approve 2 field trips. And since you've already approved the revised agenda, we're okay. One field trip is the 5th grade going to the Great American Ballpark. They've incorporated the 5th grade science standards into this field trip. They'll be measuring density, looking at angles. I thought, what a fun way to certainly practice your science skills. The second, I'm going to have to send you the specifics. I believe you probably saw that our athletic director just received a request that's very timely. Although coaches are asked to put any overnight possible trips on the August agenda, we have one that is coming through, being walked through today, and that is for the wrestling team to go to state competition. Right now, we just heard that it's going to be less than 10 students, more like 4, but they are competing and will be invited to compete March 8th through the 10th. They do have 4 to 5 chaperones. If anyone's on medication, the way I read the application is that parents will be there to administer it. So it looks like it's a state-sponsored competition, adequate supervision, all parameters are covered, and it's being funded through the athletic department.
How are they
Did I
getting
miss
there?
anything?
How are they getting there?
By, van,
District
our
van?
shuttle. Mhm.
Is it? Well, I guess you have to have a motion first.
So, looking for a motion to approve 2 field trips, one to the Great American Ballpark for the 5th grade science students, and another to approve the wrestling team to go to the state tournament in Columbus.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Gary Gabbard, any discussion?
Is there a reason why it wasn't brought to us in August?
I do not have that information.
'Cause I
As
think
the
we went through this-
application was walked through this evening and not even signed, so it's being backed up. But we do not want to jeopardize the students competing based on adult.
We absolutely do
Practice.
not, but there are rules, and we went through this last year with the wrestling team.
Correct. We will carry that frustration and that message back.
Thank you. Not to the children, and not to Zach.
Correct. Let the record show.
Let the record reflect, please.
Any more discussion?
No.
Mrs. Bowers, what happened to is the DECA trip not happening?
We approved that last month, so that shouldn't have been on there. That was another revision.
You may have to refresh your screen.
Okay,
And the AP was on there last month as well.
okay. Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next item is 6B. It's to review policy 5223. And we have a policy, I've had this policy for a number of years. And basically it says that we are to allow release time during the school day for religious instruction. May that be a religious elective at the high school, or may it be a program at the elementary. And our community ministerial partnership's been working with LifeWise Academy, who's going to work with 1st grade only as a pilot beginning in the fall. And they want to start with 1st grade, offer it during lunch, recess. Kids can walk over or be shuttled to the church next door and receive a 20-minute lesson and get their lunch and have an activity. And it's all only if parents want to sign them up. It's not obviously mandatory. But that is a policy that's been around for a while, and we have an organization that would like to offer a service to our schools.
So are we looking for a motion to approve this, or is this?
Basically, it's just acknowledgement, approving the acknowledgement that we will be offering this.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this?
Did you have a motion?
Do we need to do a motion?
Probably not, because we're within policy.
Okay.
Any discussion?
I don't think so.
Very interesting.
Mhm.
Have we ever done this before?
Brookville Likewise Academy. No, it's very new. I can tell you there are schools that have started this, and I believe Scott Fussnecker attended a meeting with several other curriculum people last spring. So I believe we will be the 3rd district around. Lebanon's offering it, I believe. Help me out. Who else?
Schools. There's a lot of schools in the
Yeah.
state, though I can't remember, but I went to a meeting with the lieutenant governor and several other people from across the state that are,
So basically, I wanted to put it on the agenda to be very transparent. It's parent permission, opt-in. Certainly don't need to do it. It will not be during core academic time. And then I will put out a memorandum of understanding to the Likewise to say that, yes, we had this on our board agenda and you're aware of it.
And it's a standardized program at the state level?
Absolutely. And it's actually
professional.
accredited.
Very nice.
Accredited with Dave Yost even is supporting it and has a letter of support. So it's state recognized, yes.
Okay, good.
Back in the old days, when the world was black and white,
Mm-hmm.
Carrie and I used to walk over to do religion class
Yeah,
at our school.
yeah.
So we have done it before.
I think it's gone over well in the districts that have provided it. The fact that it's self-selective, you either do it or you don't, and it certainly offers an option for families. So we're excited to be able to offer this to our community.
And this is at Edgewood Baptist?
This is at the Edgewood Baptist next door to the primary building. Yes.
And it'd be at, First Church of God with the green roof,
Oh, I thought it was at First Baptist. Is it the First Church of
the
God?
one by, Miss Halsey's building.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was Mr. Yeah, First
I think
Baptist.
that's
Okay.
it. First Baptist.
First Baptist.
It is.
So
We got a
it's,
lot of churches around here.
Yes, we do.
Pizza places.
Yes.
so it's, and we're saying they're gonna walk?
They can do either. They have a shuttle, so if it's gonna rain, they'll shuttle, but they certainly can walk. And the supervisor of the program will come get the children if they walk and bring them back, and they'll have a roster of exactly who's there that day. They'll take their lunch from the cafeteria with them, a brown bag field trip lunch, or they can pack. And they'll be supervised to, from, and
Okay,
we're
that
good
was
with
where
it.
I
And their
was.
volunteers are background checked, and they will even go through our own if needed, but they do FBI and BCI as well.
I do think they should go through our own.
No problem.
And how?
We require everybody else,
Yes,
our
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they can give us a copy. We don't take copies for anybody else. We can do that, though. That's fine.
And how long will the students be gone?
Within their lunch recess hours, so no more than 45, 50 minutes, or maybe even the hour, whatever their lunch and recess is. That's how long we'll be gone.
Sounds?
And it cannot happen during core. It'll be elective.
And it's set to start in April.
Well, the planning will actually start with students, I believe, in the fall.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So we move that to, instead of an approval, to a discussion. So, awesome. The next item, 6C, is a standard procedure. Every year we go into the Ohio Department of Education portal. We certainly review our process for open enrollment. So before you, you'll see that we are a district that offers open enrollment to anyone from the state of Ohio, not just surrounding districts. And at one time, we had the intra-district when we had 2 elementaries, and there were several grade levels in 2 different buildings. Well, now that we have a grade level in each building, that no longer is the case. So we would go with this. If you're on the application, the last selection that just says we have a grade level in each building. So that doesn't pertain. And this is just standard on our agenda because it is a statewide process.
So I want to talk about this from last year. It's my understanding that we had some students that were open enrolled in the district that had been for years, and some of them didn't get in, at least initially, but we took students who hadn't been open enrolled in the past.
It depended. Remember, we cut like several teachers. So because of enrollment per grade level, that could have happened. So when we had a teacher retire and they weren't replaced, that impacted numbers. So it didn't have anything to do with the fact that they were here before, not had to do with the grade level capacity.
So
Do we need a motion to discuss this?
is this,
Yes.
well, are we voting on this, or is this?
No.
Do we have to vote to approve this?
What does the agenda say?
Yes, motion, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the open enrollment certification as presented.
So, ma'am.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, looking for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft. So now we get the discussion. No, I'm glad you kept me on track because I didn't realize we were approving this. I thought this was something we did every year. It was procedural. So I guess my question is so last year it was done on a first come first serve though, right?
Yeah, I think it's always been done on a first come, first serve, but last year what was different is you weren't guaranteed to be placed in. Previous years, we always just took whoever applied. We didn't look at attendance or behavior. We didn't even necessarily look at class sizes. This past year, we created a process where we had a deadline. It was first come, first serve by date and time. If students had siblings, a priority was also considered. But again, the bottom line rule was capacity. We didn't accept any students if our lower grades were above 22, 23, because we wanted to allow room for move-ins. And then we also, in the upper grades, didn't accept after 25. And then we reevaluated that again in August. The second piece is if they were poor attendance, we did not approve, or if they had been suspended, we didn't necessarily. We would seek principal input. So the process did change by being more selective of capacity for teacher-student class size.
Didn't that allow us also, there was some teachers that left and took other opportunities, we didn't have to fill their spot.
Correct.
And we actually was able to create some savings through that.
Correct.
Last year, that was part of that savings that we did.
In the year before, we had some classes up to 27, 29 with open enrollment in it, and that gets a bit high, you know.
So I guess, and I think you said this, but just to make sure I understand, so there is no preferential treatment given to a student who is already in the district, open enrolled in the next year. It is 100% first come, first served based off the criteria that you just.
If they hit the deadline, yes. If they were here before, first of all, you have to hit the deadline. We had some students that didn't even fill out the application, but just assumed they were automatically in. So that's not, the assumption's not accurate. You have to fill out an application. Mm-hmm. And if it's a new application, the preference is by date and time. If it is an application of a student that's been here before, of course, we give preference to them, as well as if they have a sibling in the district.
I got you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I didn't understand that's the way we did it last year. There was a lot of discussion, as you remember, about
Yes,
this.
because there were some kids that A, didn't get in because they didn't complete an application, or B, they didn't get in because we were at capacity and they were here the year before. And that was hard stretch, but we can't take open enrollment in March, April, June, cut teachers, and then have move-ins on top of it. That's just not good accountability for management.
Understand. Okay.
Says open enrollment, have they been notified of the?
Yes, we actually moved the date up a little bit, and I think did you talk about that? But our date is March 28th is the deadline. Mm-hmm. So Paige, our EMIS coordinator, put out information by the end of January, started saying you can start completing your applications. So they're coming in.
Okay.
We're actually going to sit down and look at staffing after spring break and look at numbers, and that will help us get to some of those questions and answers that we've been talked about in our work session.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, I have, I think there's 4. I don't know. We might have to share and I'll send the last in just a second. Wait a minute. I think, is that the right pile? Nope, wrong pile. This is the pile. Basically, is that the right pile? Hang on. Does that all say the same, Edward? All right.
Yeah, these are from Scott Clemens.
Yep. Thank you. Starting to confuse myself, and I didn't leave. Yes, I do. Didn't think I left one for myself. Basically, Scott Clemens, our athletic director, is just asking us to consider, and this is for reflection and for future possible discussion, but he's basically noticing due to the finances of the families, and if families have more than one student playing a sport, or if they have one playing more than 2 different sports, that it's certainly impacting the level of enrollment and participation. So he's just asking that the board consider discussing a family cap, different pay levels for middle high school activities, different pay levels for multi-sport and multi-fine art programs. And I believe by that is right now the way it's written is that our marching band pays a fee, but also those same band members that might be in jazz or steel band are paying another fee. And so just to look at some of that, some of those scenarios. Would we consider monthly payments prior to the season? We know that we have to have the sport paid for prior to the season, but would we take installment prior to that season? And of course, we said last year we would consider fundraising activities. So just want to bring this to your attention. I know that you've heard me talk about this in a previous board meeting as a possible discussion But I know that, our athletic director's in the audience, and he just said, is there a time that maybe we could consider that?
When are we gonna see the, proposed budget for next year? So May when we'll see that?
The 5-year forecast, yes. We already have some meetings scheduled to go in and define what our needs are for the upcoming school year, and as soon as we get that plugged in. A lot of stakeholders involved because we have to define curriculum. We know that we've asked for more money to be spent on curriculum moving forward. Also learning about all the technology needs throughout the forecast. So we're just now sitting down, putting numbers together and trying to define what those needs are. But
Can we have this information at the time we look at that? I mean, I think that would,
Sure can.
that way we at least know what the financial impact would be of this. I'm sure that's gonna take some time to kind of work through, but maybe use the numbers from this year. This is what this would cost if we were to do it.
I'm gonna ask that Elisa and Scott get on my calendar, and we can take a look at a proposal.
Because I mean, we know the pay to play that we're doing right now doesn't cover the costs of everything that goes into
Correct.
all the extracurricular activities that we're doing. So I mean, that comes out of pocket, but I think we're certainly open to this. Just would need to know what this would cost to do that. Okay.
Okay, just have two more things. Just want to mention a little bit about our chronic attendance. You saw the significant percentages that we missed that indicator, and I met with someone from the Ohio Department of Education that said, what's going on in Edgewood? You should not have chronic attendance that high. So under the direction of Mr. Fussnecker, he's been working with the principals really hard and really doing a focused job at monitoring the attendance. And I know our principals are talking about this more in regard to meeting with families and working on intervention plans for attendance only. So just want to share a little statistic here. Last year, our EECC building was at 42% absenteeism, and right now they're at 25%. And we know that's going to be slightly more, but we're not anticipating that to be as high. The same thing in the rest of the buildings. The primary building was at 26.6. Right now they're at 14%. They're really kicking it. EIS was at 22.6. They're at 18%. They did the best, so their span wasn't as high, but they're still doing better. The middle school was at 25%. They're now at 18%. And the high school was at 40%, and they're at 33%. So although they're not where we want them to be, we certainly want to give credit where credit's due, and they're doing better at really tracking that and working with families and trying to get that number down. So kudos to our administrators. And the last piece, just
I got a
wanted
question
go
on
ahead.
that.
Yep.
Any idea how that translates into our state report card? For example, with the numbers that she just gave, how would that have affected us last year?
So depending on the building, it actually, Lori would have received an extra rating because of her attendance. She just barely missed that attendance rating. But Scott, what would you clean up that I say? Depends on the building and where they fall with grades,
There
but
are
it's
6
actually can give them
components
additional
on the report card. Depending on what building, what level building you have, you will not have all the components on your report card. So the less grades you have in your building, chances are you have less components attributed to your grade. So it all depends on what building you're at. It falls in a little category called gap closing, and that's where you have your students who are on IEPs or all your different subcategories. One of them is also now chronic absenteeism. It's really just a little sliver. It's like 5 points out of all the total points on that one component you can get. But when you have a building, for example, like the Early Childhood Center, that was only 1 grade, they get points for gifted services and identification, and they get points for chronic absenteeism, which is not your attendance rate totally, but those are the only 2 opportunities for him to garner points in, or for that building to get points. So for that building, a great deal, like half the grade. For other buildings, you could have the worst chronic absenteeism rate in the state, and it probably wouldn't really affect their overall grade at all. So it just depends, there's a lot to it.
But it sure impacts the district.
So this
Yeah.
is hypothetical, but last year we were a 3-star school, right? So would this make us 3.5? Would it make us,
Well,
is it enough to move it that much?
the
The
short answer is no, because not one part of the report card. They've divided it up a lot over the years, and Miss Spivey's on the committee. I used to serve on the committee, she's on it now. They worked hard at trying to spread out how much weight these different things affect a report card. What we really hope is that we know when kids come to school, they learn. We are hoping that all the other parts of the report card get better because kids are coming.
Yeah.
But that's the real meat of what we hope that will be had out of this, and that will, we hope, raise the report card.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't, if the intermediate building had the attendance last year they have right now, wouldn't have that
Their
taken
grade
them from
would've went
3.5 star
They
to
would have went to
4?
a 4.
Yeah. So just
The
depends.
EIF would have, and of course, our early childhood could go from a 1 to a 3, 4, or 5. But they don't even take a test. So there's a lot to it. So yes, it can, but the real get is getting these kids to come to school so the rest of the learning can happen.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
agree.
where we
Okay.
get the biggest.
Good explanation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That was great. Thank you.
Okay, last superintendent item, we have several high school groups that have been competing over the last several weeks. Certainly want to give a shout out to our core leaders who always put us on the map, but they were in Indiana on February 3rd, walked away with a first place. And I heard they had competed in West Virginia before that and walked away with the People's Choice, which is quite an honor as well. So it's nice to always see that they're recognized, and certainly our students and staff that work so hard. Another group that just received some recognition is our DECA group, which is Butler Tech course offered at the high school. But they attended the Region 7 HOSA competition, and they walked away with several 3rd and 4th place recipients. So we're certainly proud of them. And then our ROTC program participated in an online academic competition, and they, among 1,000 schools, and they now qualified to go to Washington, D.C. in June. So they placed at a national level. Real pleased about that. So a lot of great things happening in Edgewood School District, and we probably don't share enough love and say enough positive things, but we're very proud of our people and what they do.
So with the RTC, will they actually get to go, or is that a trip we're working towards?
Doug, do you think they'll do that online as well, or do you think that that's something they'll actually compete in Washington, D.C., the competition for ROTC?
I think they need to just kind of review the next steps and get the paperwork, and then we'll see if they meet the criteria to go to DC.
It says it's held in Washington, D.C. in June, so I'm hoping
So I
when
think
we
there's one
see
more
that.
test, and then if they pass that test, then they get to go to DC. That's my understanding. But I'll check with Colonel Dan.
Who would fund that how would that be funded?
I'm sure we would fund that through some sort of fundraising dollars. Usually that's not funded through the district. We either fund through parent groups, fundraisers.
That's awesome. Good for them.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure we'll find a donation somewhere if that's the case.
How is the enrollment for the ROTC right now?
How many?
Yeah.
I know that we're short about 12 to 15 students. I'm going to say there's 24 or 26 in ROTC. Who wants to clean up what I just said?
There's about 50. The questions they have to do is they have to get 10% of the student body, but they're working with JROTC to figure out, does Butler Tech count towards that student body count? So for example, we lose about 80 to 100 kids at Butler Tech. If we take those out of the student body count, that would help them have the number go down. They're doing a lot of innovative things, going to the middle school, reaching out to middle school kids, and really working to boost the program.
Thank you.
Good deal. Any more discussion? In your direction?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item of business is items from board members. We'll start with you, Mr. Gabbard.
Actually, I don't have anything to share this evening. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir. Mr. Michael Pressler?
I don't have anything either, sir.
Thank you. Amy?
I would just encourage any administrator from the high school, if they get an invitation to the FFA banquet coming up, that they should attend, as well as board members, because it's pretty cool.
April
banquet.
20th, already on my calendar.
And they're selling strawberries right now till tomorrow. If anybody wants them, contact Kelly Weiser. That's my PSA for FFA.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Ashcraft. Mr. Andrew Pressler?
So I'm looking for interest from the other board members about possibly scheduling a work session to, at the possible savings of shutting down 7 Mile. We could schedule something before the next meeting,
For the next meeting?
a work session.
For, what was the reason?
About the possible savings of shutting down 7 Mile.
Do you think we should schedule that when we already said the last meeting is gonna take us a while to gather that information?
We said last meeting that we had to make a decision by our
By
March
March
meeting, so that's why I'd like to, and whether we go and we bring up the last topic and we discuss, you know, Academy, we're shutting it down. I think that we're all aware that there needs to be some sort of savings. We're not heading in the right direction as a district, and I feel like we need to get on track with our spending.
I think we need some financial information to
Correct.
get any further than what we did last week.
Yes.
My question would be, will you be able to have the information we need prior to the meeting?
To gather costs for that building.
Yeah.
Like, we've been working on it, so I think we could certainly dial it in.
But we're gonna have a financial picture, you said, until May.
The 5-year forecast will be in May. Again, that's a work in progress every day. We do have a curriculum meeting scheduled this week to look at those costs. I've been working with technology to look at those costs as well. A full picture, no, I'm not gonna have that in a couple weeks. I mean, I can, because we're already working on the cost associated with that building from the last meeting. Like I said, I can fine tune that. But I can't give you a 5-year forecast in 2 weeks. I can give you a snapshot of what it looks like on that day, certainly.
And why are you gonna do it before March?
Because we discussed this all last year. I mean, this has been going on for 15 years. And we're in trouble. I mean, Mark brought it up last meeting. I mean, he was talking about the academy. We didn't have interest in that. We know there's savings out there in a building that we don't need. We have the room elsewhere within the district to be able to occupy our students. So my thing is instead of waiting and then having to cut teachers, get rid of, I love the fact that we're buying curriculum. We haven't purchased curriculum in how many years?
14 years. Right?
14 years. So at what point do we go, hey, now is the time to go ahead and do that? And if we keep pushing off because we're scared to make that tough decision, and we keep passing it down to the next board, we keep saying, here, let the next board worry about it, let the next board deal with it. Because we can't sit up here and make the right decision for the district because it's a tough decision. I think that's unfair. When that's what we are elected to do, we are elected to do what we felt was best for this district. And I feel like everybody in some way realizes that that's what's best, but it's a tough decision, it's a hard decision. And I get that.
Well, I'll tell you, I kind of take offense to the fact that you said we don't make a decision. Since I've been on the board, I've made that decision 3 times. And whether or not it was best for the district is what we evaluated. And we evaluated at that time that it was not best for the district. So it's not like we've been kicking the can down the road. We made decisions, we said no. Those boards that I was on. So we don't keep kicking it to the next board, which, I mean, if you want to have a discussion, we can have a discussion. But I don't think it's fair to say that decision has never been
What does
made.
it continue to get brought up for?
Well, people keep bringing it up.
Because,
I don't know.
what's that?
I mean, I think that because we didn't pass a levy, it's brought up again. I mean, I think if we had passed a levy, I don't think anybody would bring it up.
Do you think it just needs to be on the agenda for approval? Because I don't know what else you're gonna discuss more than what was discussed last week outside of having a clear 5-year forecast. Because I'm hearing from the treasurer, we're only $400 short next year.
Well,
And I understand
we
long-term, what does
we
that
ran
look
through
like?
this all last year, and we were aware, and when we ran it last year, I think the savings was around $650,000 a year, if I'm not mistaken, when we ran through this all last year.
600, yep.
Okay, so we're aware that that savings is there. We also know, because we just went through the academy situation, we have room in this district for the students that we have. So that my biggest thing is I never wanted to take away from our students. I don't want to take away, from them in any way. But if financially, if we can do that, and we can have that savings to spend that money elsewhere, because here's the deal. Teachers here soon, they're gonna want more money. I mean, the cost of living, everything else. We can't even keep the staff we got because we're not paying them enough money. People come in here and they complain about transportation. We're not paying our bus drivers enough. We're not on par with everybody else, even in our county. But yet we continue to see her. Since I've been on the board, we have done nothing but cut. And we've had no problem getting rid of staff, cutting administrators, cutting teachers. And we've been fine with that. That's okay. But yet when it comes to cutting a building,
So should we just put that on the agenda, is what I'm saying?
I'm fine with that.
I would like information before we put it on the agenda. I think
Put it
that
on the agenda to do what?
to close it.
The recommendation
To close
is to close the building. And because my concern is, we had a work session last week, and we didn't have the data. She's telling us the 5-year forecast isn't gonna be complete until May. What data are we gonna have if we don't have a solid budget?
Well, we also had Alicia tell us that she's not real sure that we have enough room. She needs to evaluate that. That's probably not, I'm sure you haven't got that done yet,
We
have
can
you?
get that done by the next board
rooms.
meeting.
There's different options for configurations
Right.
that would take more than just me looking at.
Right.
And we've got some meetings set up to look at those things, so yes, there's enough rooms,
And we also have a question that's been added to the community survey about reconfiguration, but we're not gonna have that until March 28th.
After March.
And
Well,
that was
and-
added after the work session to the survey. So I guess my question is, what is it that we're gonna know next week or the week after that we didn't just talk about last week? I don't have a problem putting this on the agenda. I'm just concerned about we're not gonna have any new information.
Well, I would like,
Because it's gonna take a little time. First of all, we also need to find out if we're gonna close 7 Mile, what are we doing with it? We gotta find out what an abatement cost is. I'm not gonna have that come next week.
Well, and then also last year when
I think operating cost is something that's something you can
We have that.
plug out.
Yes.
Absolutely. We have that now.
Electric, water.
Mhm. Matter of fact, it's a little less than 100,000 from what I've seen. We have that, got that yesterday.
100,000 a year.
Little, it was
Like
about
the
87,
utilities,
88.
yes.
Mhm.
Utility wise, that is not all inclusive. I mean, we've got a copier leased out there. We've been working on another document for alarm monitoring. I mean, there's a lot going on out there, so we are working on those numbers.
And depending on the
I think that's the
reconfiguration, will
numbers that I
determine
would
if
like to
we
see.
cut all staff as far as classified, or do you move some of them because you have heavier grade levels and configurations? It's just, that's not, you just need a little bit more time. So I
Well,
guess
I
that's
guess
and I
what-
understand that last year when we talked about this, this was supposed to go on this was supposed to be never stopped last year. We were supposed to continue moving. And what happened was, because last year we didn't have the time, so it was like, okay, we'll wait till next year, we'll figure something out, we'll work on it. And then it got dropped, it got pushed to the side, and then boom, this gets brought up. Last week last meeting we started discussing the academy and stuff, because I do believe something has to be done. And so we sat there, we had our last meeting. I just feel like hey, we need a decision right now, or else I wouldn't be bringing this right now. It's just something has to be done before next school year. We got to have time to be able to apply for permits and everything like that. If we don't make a decision quick, nothing's gonna get done.
Permits
And
for what?
To move the preschool, we have to work with the state.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
could
to be
take
able to-
4 to 6 months.
And my thing is the worst thing about being on this board was the moment that I got on this board, we have done nothing but cut and cut and cut. That's it. And
Yeah, you're right.
and
Getting ready to cut some more. We're
Yes.
expected to be about $500,000.
and what's
in
going to happen
administrative.
is when you're a part of that and you're nickel and diming, you're saying, I mean, just like this letter right here that Scott Clemens gave us tonight about the pay to play or pay to participate fee. You know, this doesn't feel good. Like, this is terrible that we even have to do this in the first place, but we can't pass a levy. And we have to do things. And to me, I feel that we've reached the point where it's time to do something. It's time to do something, you know, I don't know.
Okay, so I chimed in. You're looking for a looking for interest of a board work session before March 25th.
Yes, so that way we can, because I feel like that March date, we have to have a decision by that March date, but I don't feel like we have all the information right now to be able to make a true decision. But if we had a work session to where we could get, if you guys could say, hey, we can get you this information, as like, and look, we know it's not going to be accurate. You're going to be able to give us possible savings on certain things. You're going to be able to be accurate on certain things, but not everything. We get that. But just that way we have something.
Can
to
we
be able
push
help
it
make
to
up.
after spring break and have the work session before the April meeting in order to have more information?
If we voted on something in April, would you have time to do something before next school year?
Yes, I'd have to.
So let me ask you this, with the permits that are required for preschool, is there anything that would prevent us from going after those permits so that if we were to do what I asked to look at and move the virtual academy to 7 Mile, would it hurt to go ahead and put that in place to move that to another building, or at least have some discussion around
We don't
what's
need
gonna go-
permits for virtual academy. The only permits we
You
need
do
are
for preschool. So if you're going to move preschool to
we have to
another
know
building,
exactly where it's going so they can do the measurements.
so that's so we had preschool at Baybeck at one time, right?
Mhm.
So if we were going to put preschool over there, I would imagine that would be would that permit still be?
We still have to go through because we changed buildings, but we shouldn't have to jump through as many hoops if we've had preschool here before.
So I think what Andrew is saying, and it's kind of the same thing that I was saying, is that, you know, if we wait until May to make a decision, you don't have time to do anything by next school year. So
Correct.
You're pushing this down the road by a year. But if we already have permits in place so that we could move preschool to EIS or to Baybeck, and we decided in May that we wanted to do one of the several options that have been discussed.
Mm-hmm.
If we started that process now, we could potentially do that over the summer, right, and still make it work by next fall.
But what information do you need now? I mean, I could do that in March, April and feel comfortable with preschool. But what information do you need to make that decision? That's what I'm worried about. You're not going to get detailed information.
I need you to say, hey, look, it's not going to affect these kids' education, and we can do it by eliminating that building. And I need an estimated savings cost per year. Because if you look at me, honestly, if it's $200,000 a year, and if it's not, if you look at me and you say it's not going to affect the kids' education, and it's a savings, and we don't need that building, that's what I'm looking for.
So do we need a work session for that?
I don't know. So if you can bring that information, can we put it on the next meeting?
We can.
If you can guarantee, then we'll just do it next meeting, and you guys have the information available, and we can make a decision at night, whether it's.
I don't want to speak for the board. We can get you more information on March 25th than we can next week. And we can come in with a recommendation of, does education delivery change from classroom to classroom? No, it's not going to.
Okay.
Well, I would like to know what we're gonna do with it.
Right.
And what are the costs associated with that?
Right.
What are the ramifications of that if our district increases in size? Like, what do those numbers look like if, just say, our enrollment goes up 100 students or 150?
So I think we're the smallest we've been in the last 5 years going into next year. One of the things I thought about at that last workshop, 70% of the households in the Edgewood City Schools have no kids in the district. But I believe that's cyclic. I believe at some point those houses will come up for sale and new families could potentially move in. And 15 years from now, it might only be that 30% of the houses in the Edgewood City School District have no kids in the district. So I personally think, and I think this is where you were going with this, Amy, is that at some point we're going to want to have the option to have more seats available, because I remember at one point in time there were classes being held in trailers, and I'd really hate to think of going back to that. So I think,
and not knowing where the people are going to fall, what grade levels, we don't know. We don't have a magic wand. Even if you say 100, if they're all high schoolers, that's different than if they're all at preschool. You know what I'm saying? Not that they're all going to be that, but it really depends on the grade level band too.
Yeah.
I think what Andrew said, we wait till May, I think, and if we don't start doing things now, we wait till May, we I think are wasting a year, because we'll have to wait till the next year. I think what he's saying is he's pushing for something to be done, and that's, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of what I was asking about. The workshop I asked for last week was to kind of figure out the best use of all of our resources. So I don't know.
I don't think personally, when I heard the numbers of 33 in the morning and 17, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what I thought I heard. I don't think moving an academy to a building for less than 50 kids is the best use of money. What would that building be used for? Or if not, should we close it? And if we do close it, what happens when enrollment increases in time?
Well, I guess we also need to know the requirements of what happens, because that's what so in 2012 when I got on the board, that's what we had to look at, was what are the requirements of mothballing, it's what they called it, or tearing it down, and what was that cost associated with it. Because it's not like you just say like, okay, we're moving kids out, we're done. Like there are things you have to do, you know, like we have to keep heat on because we don't want the pipes to freeze, and I'm just using that example, I don't know if that's true or not, but like, you know, what are the requirements that we have to do if we were going to close that, or mothball it? Is that even an option? And then if we wanted to put kids back in it, what are the requirements? Because I think we heard, and I don't know how reliable that is, that there's, you know, things that we would have to upgrade and things like that. And is that more cost effective?
I know that when I first got on board, first thing I did is John Thomas walked me through all the buildings, and he gave me stacks and stacks of papers of estimates that he's received over the years for the different buildings and plans that he had put forth on his repairs and how he was going to do them. And it's going to need a roof before long, and that, you know, I think I don't want to say exactly, but say it's $1 million for a roof over there, and that there's a septic tank where there's no city sewage over there. So even if we tore that school down and we said, hey, look, let's build a new school right here in this place, we couldn't with any state funding. They're not going to give us money to build a school in that place because there's no city sewer over there. So at any time, if that sewer's go, we're looking at a large bill, just because they're going to make us get that up to code. They're going to make us do something different over there. And just I just think it makes the most practical sense, especially where we're wanting to head. Well, to me personally, I think as a board, like, you know, we've been trying to focus on, obviously we've been making cuts, but we've been trying to spend more money on curriculum and things like that and provide a better education when we could use those funds to better educate our kids. I think that's the direction we need to go.
Do we even know if mothballing is an option? I mean, you said that, Amy. Is that?
It was back then. I don't know.
I need to get with our, and I've been in touch with them. If you recall, back in June with the House School Facility Commission, I've been talking to them. They're waiting for us to say, are we willing, when do we want to go on the ballot, that kind of thing. Told them we're not even close to that. But they will walk us through those requirements. And they're kind of waiting to hear from us, seeing what we're doing.
But I guess, specifically, I mean, if we decided we didn't want to put kids in that building for a year or two, I mean, is that even an option? I've heard it's not, but I don't know how reliable the information I'm getting is.
I'm not. I've worked on facilities and closed buildings where we tore them down, but I'm not aware of closing them and, you know, mothballing them. I'm not sure why you want to do that, but.
So is that, so is that something we can put on the agenda for next meeting and then?
Will you tell me again, so have it, it'll be on the agenda, information needed, you wanna know enrollment trends, you wanna know, grade level effectiveness or instructional effectiveness, what else? Costs,
Cost savings,
Requirements.
requirements, time frame, like is it even possible to have done?
Condition of the building.
I'm not gonna have all that, they'd have to come and do an assessment, but I'll make note of that, okay?
We probably got one that's not very old.
In 2020.
SHP,
My memory hits me.
and SHP deal?
Mm-hmm, in 2020,
Yeah.
yep. Okay,
Why did they do that assessment in 2020?
I think that was about the time you closed the other two elementaries you were talking about.
We had to for
Mhm.
OH.
Because we were next in line to get the funds again.
So it's tied to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
When they was talking about the percentage of what buildings were up to standards, I think maybe the old high school, the current middle school was the worst. Maybe they wasn't even willing to put any money into that.
I don't think Bayback and Sunflower either.
They might have been in too bad a condition to bring up to code.
Any more discussion on Andrew's topic?
The only thing, I mean, a lot of this has been done. When was this done?
What?
These numbers we met,
We just went through it all last year before the levy.
It was before, actually, it was
when
before I
OFCC
came.
had all of our,
Are you talking about the 600,000 cost? That was done with Molly and,
Oh.
and, Mr. Fussnecker.
And that's when we
That was
first started
before my
talking about
time.
it on the ballot and stuff, and we started going through like warrant deficit spending, and we started
When
looking
did we
into
go on the
all
ballot?
that.
That's the only time I saw that, yeah.
But that wasn't, like, we didn't have the requirement information and
No.
all that sort of stuff.
I think that's.
Go down, tear it down. How much that will cost? I mean, do we know how much it costs to tear it down?
No,
How do we find that information?
so I have to go through the Ohio School Facility Commission and get updated costs.
Will you have that by the
I'm gonna
20th?
try.
I mean, cause
I'll tell you, put it this way, it's on the agenda, noted, I'll give you all the information we have. Can't promise you things from the Ohio Facility Commission.
Are we putting this on the agenda to vote on? Is that what we're saying?
No, I'm gonna put it on the agenda as information, if you guys wanna turn it into that, then vote on it, unless you wanna be able to vote that way.
Let's see it first.
Yeah, exactly,
Let's see.
yeah. Why don't we do a presentation on it, and then you guys can decide what you wanna do with it from there, how's that?
Okay, so I'll finish up items from board members. I just really have one thing, and guys, I wanted to recognize you and Patty for the work y'all put into the community engagement event last week. That was the second one I've got to go to, and I think it's awesome that you're doing that. I wish the turnout was a little bit better. There was, I think at the last one we had 8 or 10. About 10 people from the staff. I think there were 6 people from the community, and a lot of really good discussion. For anybody that's watching at home, these are really great opportunities to go and have your voice be heard. So hopefully we can see those continue, and we can continue to see more and more folks come in and talk with you about what's important to them from a community perspective, because I think that's truly how we're going to continue to push this district forward. So thank you guys for the work that y'all do on that.
Thanks for being a part of it.
I did.
Any more discussion before we go to make a motion to go to executive session? So I don't anticipate there being a whole lot to talk about when we come back out, other than voting on personnel items. So at this time,
It's our month.
All of our executive session stuff are on.
my computer's There it goes, it's moving now. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion for the board to go into executive session for the purpose of the consideration of the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Mr. Andrew Pressler, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Gary Gabbard, the time is 7:05 p.m. Mrs. Bowers, will you call roll, please?
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, the time is 8:35. We have returned from executive session. The next order of business is personnel items. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the administrative, certified, classified, exempt, and supplemental nominations.
Can we block A, B, and C?
Yes,
Would it be easier?
you're good with that.
So moved.
Let's keep them.
Okay.
So, Mr. Gary Gabbard, looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Andrew Pressler. Any discussion? Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Abstain.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Okay, the next thing I'd like to do is block items B and C, administrative contracts. So I'm looking for a motion to approve items B and items C as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Gary Gabbard, can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Michael Pressler. Any discussion?
No.
Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
The last item of business is adjournment. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft, looking for a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
You guys want to see you?
Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.